At the moment my story kicks off, Jamie and I had already been married for 6 years. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime, other times, like just yesterday. I still have vivid memories of our wedding day. Everything about it was grand. We had 300 guests, 7 bridesmaids, 7 groomsmen, and the flower arrangements alone cost us $20,000. It was an over-the-top affair, but one I'd never forget. I can still hear the officiant's voice echoing in my head as he stood before us asking, "Do you, Jamie Elizabeth Snowden, take Blake William Benson to be your lawful husband, forsaking all others, until death do you part?" The moment she answered with a resounding, "Yes," I remember the look in her eyes. It was like she was silently making a vow, not just with her words, but with her gaze, promising me that she would never be with anyone else. I gave her the same look, and in that moment we made a silent promise to each other that we were all in, no matter what. Jamie and I always thought we were a great match. We shared so many of the same values, and we both had clear goals for what we wanted out of life. But at the same time, there were enough differences to keep things from ever feeling stale. Jamie was the more driven one, always competing, always pushing herself to be the best. She's the kind of person who thrives on challenges, whether it was in sports or anything else. Me? I'm the more laid-back type. I've always believed in finding harmony rather than going after the win at all costs. Sure, I have an athletic build, but I never had that drive to truly excel in sports the way she did. It didn't bother me. I was content just being good enough, living life at my own pace. What set us apart even more was our social lives. Jamie was a social magnet, constantly surrounded by people. Her life was filled with acquaintances, surface-level friendships, and endless social events. I, on the other hand, was more of an ambivert. I enjoyed being around people, but I never craved a crowd. I preferred a few close, meaningful relationships over 100 casual ones. The way I was raised made me more inclined toward quality over quantity when it came to people in my life. Jamie's career was another area where we differed. She went to one of the top universities on the East Coast, earning her degree and landing a well-paying job at a pharmaceutical company in no time. But it wasn't just her smarts that got her to the top. Her beauty played a role too. Unfortunately, that's how the industry worked. Big Pharma was all about selling products, and they found it easier to sell them through a pretty face. It wasn't hard for Jamie to stand out in a sea of competition. Standing at 5'7", with long blonde hair, a dazzling smile, and eyes that almost glowed neon green, she was the perfect fit for the job. She worked her way up so quickly that she eventually gained exclusive rights to sell certain pills in her territory, which was a pretty big deal in her industry. Despite her success, there was one thing I never quite got used to. Jamie's job meant she was away from home a lot. She'd often be gone for 3 nights a week, sometimes more, or even weekends. She would explain it away, saying the market for some of the pills was small but profitable. But honestly, it didn't sit right with me. I didn't like the long stretches of time we spent apart. Some weekends, I'd find myself feeling lonely, longing for someone to just be there with me. While Jamie was away, I kept busy. I'd hit the movies, go to ball games, bowl with friends. But if I'm being real, most nights I just stayed home and watched TV. My job doesn't require travel, and it allows me a lot of flexibility. I work in the renewable energy industry, selling software and hardware for systems that help power the future. I even have some patented technologies under my belt. Most of my work can be done from my computer, and I only need to be on site a few hours a week to oversee production at the plant. Because I'm home so much, I've gotten to know most of the neighbors in our building. I know that's rare in most apartment complexes, especially in the US, where everyone's usually keeping to themselves. The people in our building tried to convince me to run for president of the condo association, but I declined. I didn't want that kind of responsibility. However, I did agree to handle the accounting for the association, which was honestly pretty simple and gave me something productive to do. Our building is split up into 4 duplexes per floor and 1 single-level apartment on each floor. The duplexes are huge, 3 bedrooms, an office, a big living room. The single-level apartments are smaller, with just 1 bedroom, a living room, kitchen, bathroom, and a powder room. One of the single-level apartments, 5B, was rented out by a woman named Cecile Wilson. She was young, probably about 23, and something about her didn't add up. I couldn't figure out how she could afford to live in such an upscale building on her own. Jamie and I were only 29, so I'm sure the other residents thought the same about us, especially since we owned our apartment. I assumed Cecile must be some kind of high-end escort. given her looks and the frequency of men coming and going from her apartment. But I never brought it up to anyone. She didn't bother anyone, and frankly, it wasn't something you just ask about. Now, what did Cecile look like? In the first year after she moved in, I only saw her wear makeup a couple of times. At the pool, she wore a simple one-piece swimsuit, and at the gym, she dressed in baggy shorts and a t-shirt. Around the building, she usually wore pants and long-sleeve shirts. Whenever she went out in public, she'd pull her long brown hair into a bun and wear bulky black glasses. I always thought she had perfect vision, though, because the glasses didn't seem to serve any real purpose. They looked like regular glass. She was definitely trying to hide her beauty, but she wasn't fooling anyone. Cecile had a nearly flawless face, and let's just say her body was something that couldn't be fully hidden by conservative clothing. She was around 5 feet tall, with curves in all the right places, long legs, a tiny waist, and hips that would make an artist weep with envy. She was slim, but in a way that made her look just right. She didn't have a body that you'd forget in a hurry. My relationship with Cecile was friendly but distant. We'd exchange pleasantries when we ran into each other at the gym or the pool. Once at the grocery store, we had a brief chat about the best way to prepare organic vegetables. She was really into health, fitness, food, everything. But then, everything changed one Thursday afternoon around 1 p.m. Jamie was out of town and wasn't set to return until the next day, around 6 p.m. I was about to head to the factory for my usual trip when I heard something that didn't sit right with me. From apartment 5B, I heard loud banging and shouting, the sound of someone getting hurt. It was strange. These apartments were supposed to be pretty soundproof. I got closer to the door, and something about it felt off. The noise wasn't just loud, it was unsettling. It sounded like a man was kicking a woman. I didn't waste any time. I banged on the door, yelling, "Superintendent, open up!" There was a moment of silence, and then, in the background, I heard crying. I couldn't just walk away. I knocked again. "Open the damn door, or I'll call the cops." Then a man's deep voice growled from the other side. "F off. We're fine." I wasn't about to back down. "Open the damn door!" I shouted. "I'm calling the cops!" Suddenly, the door flew open and a massive guy stood there. He yelled at me, "None of your freaking business! Get the hell away from us!" But when I saw Cecile lying on the floor, blood pooling beneath her, I didn't care about his threats. I reached into my pocket and grabbed my self-defense tool. It wasn't much. A cheap plastic piece with finger holes, but it was enough to do some damage. He was taller than me, even though I was 6'2" and 30 pounds heavier, but I wasn't afraid. I slammed the tool into his mouth with everything I had. He staggered back, stunned, and I didn't give him a second to recover. I punched him again, harder this time. On the third strike, he tripped over Cecile's body, slammed his head into the marble floor, and went out cold. I helped Cecile up, guided her to a chair, and shut the door behind me. She had a black eye, a bloody nose, and scratches on her arms and legs. She was wearing a negligee, and while I tried to focus on helping her, I couldn't help but notice how stunning she looked. "Are you okay, Cecile?" I asked, instantly regretting how dumb the question sounded. "Can I get you anything?" I added, noticing the pain in her eyes. "I'm in a lot of pain," she moaned. After a deep breath, she added, "I'll be fine, but could you grab me some paper towels for my nose and a cold compress from the freezer?" I quickly grabbed what she asked for. While she pressed the cold pack to her eye, I cleaned the blood off her face. "Who's this a-hole?" I asked, nodding toward the unconscious guy. "An angry customer," she muttered. "We should call the cops," I said, wiping her nose. "No cops," she responded quickly, her gaze steady like she meant it. We went back and forth about calling the police, but it was obvious she didn't want to involve them. I figured it might be because she didn't want the attention, especially after everything she'd been through. Finally, I let it go. "I've got an idea," I said. "I don't want him thinking he can do this again," I added. "Do you trust me to handle it?" I asked. "Yes, just not in my apartment," she muttered, wincing in pain. I rushed back to my place, grabbed a couple of zip ties, a bottle of water, some booze, and for the first time some sleeping pills from Jamie's stash of legal meds. When the guy woke up, I was there looking down at him. I flipped him over, tied his hands behind his back, and splashed cold water on his face. He came to, disoriented. I hauled him up, but he was heavy, so I grabbed his keys and took him downstairs. "Point to the car," I said, shoving him into the driver's seat. I told him the pills were painkillers and that they would help him feel better. He took the pills with water, and I talked to him, convincing him he'd never come near us again. Once the pills kicked in, I poured some booze into his mouth. He took a deep breath, slipped the cigarettes into his pocket, started the car, and locked it. I called emergency to report a drunk driver sitting in his car in the parking lot, but I didn't stick around for the cops. I went back upstairs to Cecile. Her door was still cracked open, so I knocked and pushed it further. "Cecile, it's Blake. Can I come in and check on you?" "Yeah, come in," she muttered weakly. She was on the couch wearing a sweatshirt and sweatpants over her negligee, her head thrown back with compresses on her eye and nose. "Let me see," I said, sitting beside her. I gently removed the compress from her eye. It didn't look great. "I think we should head to the emergency room," I said firmly. She was about to argue, but I cut her off. "Cecile, I'm not a doctor, but that eye needs to be checked out. I'm taking you to the ER. No questions. Where are your shoes and purse?" I asked. She pointed, and I helped her put on her shoes. Damn, even her legs looked incredible, I thought, as we slowly made our way downstairs. We got out of the building just as the police were breaking into the guy's car. They dragged him out, tossed him in a van, and pulled away just as the tow truck showed up. On the way to the hospital, I called the office and let them know I'd be late. I helped Cecile register, confirmed her insurance, and handed her my business card with my cell number. "Call me when you're done. I'll pick you up and take you home," I said, giving her the card. "You've already done too much," she started to protest, but I interrupted her. "No, you call me. If you need anything, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I got no urgent plans today," I said firmly. "Okay, thank you," she said, trying to smile through the pain. She patted me on the head, and I walked out. I was wrapping up work when my phone buzzed. "Hey, Blake, it's Cecile," came her voice, sounding a lot stronger than when I dropped her off earlier. "You ready to go?" I asked. "Yeah, but if you're busy, I can just grab a cab," she replied. "I'm not busy," I said, my tone upbeat. "I'll be there in about 15 minutes. Traffic's bad today, so just hang out in the ER, and I'll pick you up." "Okay, thanks," she said quickly. When I picked her up, she had a bandage over her eye and cotton stuffed up her nose. We stopped at the pharmacy to grab painkillers and some ointment, then I took her back to her place. "Want me to grab something for dinner?" I asked as she slumped down on the couch. "You don't have to," she said, but I cut her off. "I want to," I said. "Otherwise, I'll just end up eating alone. How about chicken fingers and some fresh veggies?" She hesitated. Then, remembering our conversation earlier at the store, I added with a grin, "It's all organic." She burst out laughing. "What if I bring it all ready at 6? I asked. "Sounds good," she said, smiling weakly. She handed me a key from her purse. "Here, so you don't have to knock." I showed up at 6, bringing the food, a bottle of wine, and some seltzer. I used the key she gave me to get in. That's when I actually started looking around her apartment. It hadn't really crossed my mind before with all the focus on her. Her place was simple but had style, with a few original paintings on the walls. They weren't masterpieces, but they were well done and fun. Cecile was sitting at the kitchen table, her greeting and smile much stronger than when I saw her earlier. We talked casually as we ate. "I can't drink wine with these painkillers," she said when I poured her a glass. I stopped pouring. Didn't think of that, sorry." "It's not allowed," she said, but then grinned. "But I need a couple of glasses." I poured again, and she gave me a look. "You're not going to take advantage of me if I end up falling asleep, right?" "Then I'd be just as bad as that a hole," I said. And I'd have to carry your A to bed." "So don't pass out," I chuckled. "I'll try not to," she replied, laughing softly. After dinner, when I was cleaning up, I noticed two things. One, the wine and painkillers had hit her a little harder than I thought. Even though she was mostly still with it, she started to get serious. "You probably think I'm terrible for entertaining men," she said, not looking at me, sipping her wine. "Of course not," I said, trying to keep it casual. "How you make your living is your business, as long as it doesn't affect me." "How long did it take you to figure out I was an escort?" she asked, finally making eye contact. "About a month after you moved in," I said, shrugging, taking a sip of my wine. "So, you and your wife—" "What's her name?" "Jamie." "Do you and Jamie talk about this?" she asked. "Never," I said. "Jamie doesn't come by much, as you've probably noticed, and it's not something we could talk about. Anyway, I don't gossip, and I definitely wouldn't be speculating about a good neighbor's job." After a little more back and forth, she said, "You're the only straight guy I've known since I've lived here who hasn't hit on me." "Why's that?" I asked. "Because I take my marriage vows seriously," I said, looking her straight in the eye. More than 90% of my clients are married, she said, then added, but I'm not one of them if you're wondering. Physically, you're the most attractive woman I've ever seen. But I don't know you well enough to know if we'd click, and I'm not into just physical relationships. I need something more. Emotional connection to make it worth it. So don't take it personally if I didn't hit on you. She didn't answer at first. She just stared at me for a solid 30 seconds, her one good eye studying me. You know, she said quietly, despite the clients and all the closeness, I'm lonely. I barely have any friends. My job, the hours, it makes it tough to meet people I actually connect with. We dove into a real talk about her personal life after that. It ended with me asking, so what's your endgame, Cecile? Honestly, I want what you want, she said. I want a spouse, eventually kids. I want someone I can be faithful to, and him to me. I'm saving up enough so I can be financially independent by the time I'm 30. Then I'll walk away from this life and try to find the right guy. But for now, I've got to wait till I heal from all this. An idea hit me out of nowhere. How would you feel about working for me? I said, and she suddenly turned red. What? She asked, her voice high and tight, clearly in disbelief. Let me explain, I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. I realized pretty quickly that I shouldn't have laughed, so I straightened up and said, I'm not trying to hire you for sex, I swear. I just need some help with paperwork. I'm way behind, and it's been piling up. This is stuff even a Cyclops could handle if he actually tried. She chuckled at my joke, which made me feel a little better. But listen, I can't pay your usual rate, I continued. Now that she seemed more relaxed and even giggling, she grinned and muttered, which is $700 an hour, $2,500 for a full night, $4,000 for a whole day, plus expenses. She blushed as she realized what she said and quickly covered her mouth. I didn't miss a beat. I can't swing $700 an hour, but I can do $25 an hour, plus some free meals now and then. That's my offer, at least until you're fully healed. She laughed again. All right, show me what you need help with on Monday, and I'll let you know what I can do, she said. We chatted for another 20 minutes, and it was obvious she was getting tired, so I packed up my stuff. She gave me a hug, whispering, "Thank you so much," in my ear. I made sure to keep my distance since, to my annoyance, I was starting to get turned on. I patted her on the head and left. Despite the awkward moment, I enjoyed the evening. It felt like hanging out with a friend, no romantic undertones. I liked her as a person, and I didn't realize how lonely she might be. The next morning, I was working when there was a knock at the door. "Hey, Blake," Cecile said, smiling at me, dressed in her usual conservative clothes. "Hey, Cecile," I replied. "How are you feeling today?" "It still hurts like hell, but I'm in a better mood," she chuckled. "You probably want your key back," I said, reaching for the one on the table. "No, keep it," she said, "in case I need rescuing again and the guy doesn't answer the door." She hesitated before continuing. "I hate to ask, but I really need to buy groceries, and the doctor said no driving with these painkillers and the blindfold. Can you take me sometime today?" "Of course," I said with a big smile. "How about 1:30? "Great," she giggled, clapping her hands. "Just knock when you're ready." We had a blast grocery shopping. Honestly, it was the first time I ever enjoyed it. I mean, I don't exactly hate it, but I've never found it fun. Cecile made it amusing, especially when she started talking to the vegetables like they were people. On Monday, Cecile came over shortly after Jamie left for work. I showed her how to handle the mountain of paperwork scattered around my office and living room. She wasn't super fast, but she was careful, and that was exactly what I needed. We had lunch, then worked some more, and I even took her to the pharmacy to pick up a few things. That was the start of my friendship with Cecile Wilson. I realized quickly that I was probably the only guy friend she had. Since she was 18, every guy who met her just wanted to sleep with her, and that was the end of it. It's not that I didn't find her incredibly attractive. She was easily the most stunning woman I'd ever met. But I was married, and I took my vows seriously. I'd had attractive girlfriends in the past, so I didn't see Cecile as just another object. With her around, the nights and weekends when Jamie was out of town weren't so lonely. We always had something to do. Even after Cecile was fully healed about a month later and looking just as beautiful as before the whole incident with that idiot, we still hung out. Since her regular work schedule was mostly during the day on weekdays with some overnight and out-of-town gigs, we spent a lot of time together on the evenings when Jamie wasn't home. I even encouraged her to attend the condo association's parties and gatherings and made sure she had a good time. But I realized pretty quickly that I couldn't take her to hang out with my guy friends. They were either too busy hitting on her or just drooling, making it impossible to have a decent time. So it was mostly just her and me on those outings, and then she seemed to enjoy it. Even after she went back to working as an escort, she still kept helping me with the paperwork. And I noticed something interesting. She had a lot more brains and curiosity than people had probably given her credit for over the years. I started teaching her about my business, and she picked things up quickly. When I tried to pay her for helping out, she always put conditions on it, like a swim in the pool, or more time working for double the rate, or sometimes just nothing at all. More often than not, I ended up paying her nothing, and it seemed to make her happier than if I'd given her more. Cecile turned out to be one of the most honest and caring people I've ever met. She spent hours trying to track down the owner of a lost purse with no ID but nearly $100 in cash. She succeeded, and the owner was incredibly grateful. There was a time when a client of hers had health problems during their session, and she ended up driving him to the hospital and giving him his money back, despite his insistence she keep it. She cried when she couldn't save a bird that had flown into the window. She found a lost puppy and returned it to its owner, refusing any reward. She even tipped the paperboy extra, never gossiped, and always treated people kindly, no matter how the boys hit on her. I never expected to become friends with someone like Cecile, but as time went on, I realized how lucky I was to have her around. Around 8 or 9 months after Cecile and I became pretty tight, she caught me off guard one day by showing me an application for admission to the local community college. "I'm thinking about getting an associate's degree in business administration," she said, flashing a big grin. "Can you help me with my homework sometimes?" I was honestly kind of taken aback. "Of course I can," I replied, feeling a mix of pride and surprise. "I'm so proud of you." Her face lit up like a Christmas tree, and she rushed over, throwing her arms around me for a hug. It was one of those moments where, for a second, I had to make sure I wasn't getting too close to her, if you know what I mean. But this time she held on a little longer than usual, and I'm pretty sure she could feel what was going on, even though neither of us mentioned it. Neither of us made a big deal out of it, but the vibe was there, and we just moved on. What I didn't expect was that as Jamie started hearing more about my friendship with Cecile, she didn't get jealous. I think there were a few reasons for that. First off, Cecile and I always kept things chill. We never showed affection in front of anyone, and even behind closed doors, it was just hugs or a friendly kiss on the cheek. Second, we worked out a solid cover story for Cecile's job, which helped a lot. Third, Cecile started helping Jamie with some of her paperwork, and Jamie was more than grateful. Fourth, I convinced my old friend, who's gay but hasn't really come out, to be Cecile's fake boyfriend at condo association parties, and even go on double dates with Jamie and me sometimes. So yeah, everything seemed pretty smooth, until it wasn't. Life's never without its bumps, right? One Sunday morning, Jamie had to leave town for work, and she was acting more distracted than usual when she left. Before she left, she handed me a bunch of jumbled papers from her briefcase, placed them on the coffee table, and casually asked if I could get Cecile to organize them into folders. "Of course," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. We had plans that day to go apple picking, something we do once a year, and I really looked forward to it. After Jamie left, I sent Cecile a quick message. "Jamie's on the bus. You still up for apple picking later?" She replied almost immediately, "Let's go at 11. Or any time after 2, fine with me." The message ended with a happy face emoji. We ended up having a blast, picking apples and munching on cider donuts. There were a couple of college guys who couldn't help themselves from staring at Cecile's legs as she stood on the stairs at the donut shop, but we laughed it off. That evening, after we got back, we sat down for dinner at my place, and the plan was to watch a DVD afterward. But just before I popped the disc in, Cecile reached for the stack of papers Jamie had left on the coffee table. "What's all this?" she asked, picking it up. "Oh, just some papers Jamie dropped off in a hurry. She asked if you could sort them before she gets back on Wednesday night," I explained casually. "Got it," Cecile said, already trying to sort the mess out. But as she was doing that, a photo slipped out from the stack and fell to the floor. I was distracted with setting up the DVD, so I didn't notice right away, but then I saw Cecile's face. She looked completely off, like she had just seen a ghost. "What's this, Cecile?" I asked, already feeling the tension rise. Nothing," she said, quickly trying to put the photo back into the middle of the pile. But the way she reacted made it clear that nothing was definitely not the case. I could read her like an open book. "Let me see what you were looking at," I said, walking closer to her. "No, really, it's nothing," she said, trying to pull away with the papers still in her hands. I wasn't having any of that. My curiosity was piqued, so I gently grabbed her hand and said, "No, I really need to see this. What's going on?" When I freed her hands from the stack of papers, she collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. That's when I saw it, the 36x9 photos that had fallen from the pile. They were of Jamie, undressed, kissing, and having sex with 3 different guys. All the pictures were clearly taken on camera. My stomach dropped. I sank to the floor, completely in shock. 2 photos fell out of my hands and scattered across the room, and I was left holding the 3rd one. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process it. "I'm really, really sorry," Cecile whispered, touching my face lightly. I just stared at her, completely frozen. "Maybe these are from before you got married?" she suggested, almost pleading, trying to soften the blow. "Jamie got a tattoo on her shoulder 2 years ago," I muttered, barely able to speak. We sat there for what felt like forever, and Cecile asked if there was anything she could do. I finally spoke, my voice barely a whisper. "Cecile, I need to be alone for a while to try and wrap my head around this. You're my best friend, but I can't talk to anyone right now. Please." I knew tears were probably streaming down my face, and I'm sure Cecile was crying too when she hugged me just before she left. When she was gone, I took a deep breath and told myself, get it together, no time for self-pity. I stormed through the house, ripping through Jamie's dresser drawers, going through boxes in the closets, flipping through her office files. One of her desk drawers was locked, but I managed to break into it. Inside, I found a dozen more pieces of evidence. It was like a dam had broken inside me. At that moment, it wasn't a question of whether Jamie had cheated. The question was how long it had been going on and how many other guys she'd been with. Anger, humiliation, frustration, and shock coursed through me in waves. The only constant thought in my head was, how the hell could I have been so naive? I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I couldn't. By Monday, I looked like I'd been hit by a truck. I felt like crap, and I couldn't focus on anything, especially when it came to figuring out what to do about Jamie. Around 2 p.m., I heard a knock on my door. It was Cecile, holding a pitcher of margaritas, which was a little surprising because I'd never had more than one drink at a time, and I'd never seen her go beyond a single drink either. Cecile burst into the apartment like a storm. "Listen, stud," she said, slamming the jug onto the coffee table. "I canceled my meeting for today. I told your production assistants you're off the clock this afternoon. We're getting drunk as hell. Tomorrow you'll figure out what to do with your little wife." I started to protest, but it was clear she wasn't taking no for an answer. I glanced at the mess of Jamie's papers from the night before. Some of them were scattered across the floor, including the 3 photos that had knocked me sideways. Without saying a word, I grabbed the glass Cecile handed me and took a long sip. Damn, it burned. Cecile was focused on getting me drunk, sure, but she was also on a mission to make me feel better. After about an hour of her telling hilarious stories and me downing drink after drink, probably 6, maybe more, I lost count, I was starting to feel better. I ended up passing out before the sun went down. For the first time in 7 years, since I graduated college, I was lying on the floor, and Cecile was stretched out on the couch, one of her arms dangling over the side, brushing against me. At some point, I woke up to a ringing in my ears. After the 3rd time it started and stopped, I figured out it was a landline. I stumbled toward it, barely having the presence of mind to glance at the caller ID. It was Jamie's cell. My hand instinctively yanked the phone's plug out of the wall before I turned back to the couch, moved Cecile over a little, and fell asleep next to her, curled up. We both woke up at the same time in the middle of the night. It was more like 4 a.m. than anything. Cecile gave me a wicked smile and dropped a line that caught me completely off guard. "You're the first guy I've slept with who didn't try to screw me," she said with a mischievous grin. I tried to joke back. "Butcher," I said, keeping it light. "When you look in the mirror tomorrow, you'll see why," she shot back. "Broomhilda," I muttered, rolling my eyes. "You're no prize yourself." "A hole," she fired back with a laugh, both of us cracking up at the back and forth. We both stumbled to the bathroom, drank some water, and then collapsed into bed, still fully dressed. I woke up a few hours later, around 8, to the smell of bacon and eggs wafting up from downstairs. I groggily made my way to the kitchen. "Breakfast for 2, Cecile sang as she stood at the stove, flipping eggs. "I thought I'd have to light a stick of dynamite to wake you up." She laughed as I made my way over. I looked like a disaster, and when I saw myself in the mirror, I cringed. This is the worst I've ever looked in my life, I muttered, staring at my reflection. Then I glanced over at Cecile, who had clearly taken a shower, changed clothes, and even put on some light makeup. She looked amazing, like $1,000,000. No one should look that good, especially after being hung over as hell. She rolled her eyes. I hang out with you for your charm, not because of how you look, she said, turning the egg over. Now sit your A down at the table and try to hide that disaster of a face behind the cereal box so I can eat in peace. I didn't realize how hungry I was until I started eating. The food was incredible. I scarfed it down way faster than I should have, almost inhaling it. Glad to see a man appreciates my cooking, Cecile teased, watching me demolish my third egg, 200 grams of bacon, and the fourth piece of toast. I pointed my empty fork at the buttered bagel on her plate. You gonna finish that? She laughed and tossed the bagel onto my plate. Go for it, she said. It was gone in seconds. After Cecile cleaned up the dishes and started loading the dishwasher, she came over, took my face in her hands, and looked me straight in the eyes. I've got a busy day today, and I've got to stay overnight somewhere, but I'll be here tomorrow afternoon. Let me know if there's anything I can do. But listen, you've got some serious decisions to make. Before you do anything crazy, though, you need to talk to Jamie face to face. Got it? I just nodded. Okay, I muttered, my mind still spinning. Then for the first time in my life, she kissed me on the lips. It was chaste, brief, and caught me completely off guard. Oh, you're disgusting, I said, a little embarrassed by the whole thing. She giggled. Shave, shower, and brush your teeth before you do anything else, she teased. I laughed, nodded, and she left. By the end of the day Tuesday, I was finally sober, had cleaned the apartment, photographed all the evidence, or scanned it into my computer, and saved it to a flash drive. I didn't talk to anyone except my software assistant and my production foreman. My phone was blowing up with messages, mostly from Jamie, but also from her parents and even mine. But I didn't want to deal with Jamie right then, so I let the inbox fill up. I didn't even care that the landline was disconnected. I had pretty much decided what I was going to do, but I was still figuring out the details when Jamie barged into the apartment Wednesday morning, 12 hours ahead of schedule. I didn't even bother to turn around when I heard the door slam open. I knew exactly who it was. Blake, I was so worried, she said, her voice shaking with fake concern. You weren't answering your calls, and I thought something happened to you. I scoffed and didn't even look at her. Oh, wow. How touching. My dear loyal wife, concerned about me. What's the world coming to? I couldn't stop the sarcasm. My voice was dripping with it. She froze. Her face drained of color and her hand flew to her mouth like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her eyes landed on the papers I'd left on the coffee table, still there, but now neatly stacked. I could see the panic start to build in her. Let me show you my little pile of treasures, I said with a nasty grin, grabbing her by the arm and dragging her toward the kitchen. Maybe you can explain this crap. You sure as hell owe me an explanation. I shoved the stack of papers in her face, watching as her eyes scanned them. Her breath hitched, her voice cracking as she began to choke out a bunch of bullshit. Blake, I love you. It didn't mean anything. I just got so caught up in the competition, the sales. I didn't mean to hurt you, I promise. It was just a few deals. Please just... I cut her off with a laugh that sounded more like a growl. A few deals. Is that what you call this? You think you can fix this by playing house, by popping out a kid? You think that's going to make everything go back to normal? I scoffed. You ruined this. You wrecked it. You're the one who destroyed everything, and now you want me to just pretend it never happened? I turned away, not giving a damn about her anymore, walking into the master bedroom like she wasn't even there. I started ripping clothes from the closet, tossing them on the floor, not caring about what happened to them. Some landed on the bed, most of it hit the floor. I threw everything I could find into the guest room, making a mess of it. Jamie was standing in the hallway now, sobbing like a broken record. Blake, please don't! Her voice barely a whisper, but I wasn't listening anymore. Shut the F up! I barked, not even turning to face her. You don't get to talk, not now! When I was done, I went to the kitchen and grabbed the lock I'd picked up yesterday. I could still hear her crying behind me, her voice trembling as she begged. But I wasn't interested in her pleas anymore. I installed the lock on the bedroom door, not giving a single damn about how she felt. No, Blake. Please don't lock me out. She was practically begging now, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't even look at her. I just finished the lock, walked out of the room, and left her there sobbing. I locked the office door too, just to make sure she couldn't get in. I didn't need to deal with her. I didn't need to deal with any of this. I walked out, first to my production, then to grab lunch, and then to the cinema. I spent the whole damn day not thinking about her, not 1 second. When I got back around 11 p.m., Jamie was sitting on the couch looking like total crap. Her eyes were red, face a mess. And of course, there was her damn mother and sister sitting there, Candace, the last person I ever wanted to see. I stepped inside, looked at Candace with nothing but disgust. "What the hell are you doing here, Candace?" My voice was a sharp blade. She stared at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. "No more, Blake," she said, her tone like she was trying to put me in my place. "Jamie's sister, Sherry, and I want to help you get through this. Help you get past Jamie's mistake." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "A mistake? This is a mistake? Do you even know what she's done?" I snapped, turning to Jamie. "Did you show her the photos, sweetheart?" I asked, leaning in, getting close enough that she couldn't escape. But she just lowered her eyes. She couldn't even look at me. I turned back to Candace, my voice dripping with venom. "You know what you can do, Candace. You can make Jamie screw all the guys she screwed. 3, 4, 10, I don't care. Then maybe we can talk, maybe." I didn't wait for a response. I turned on my heel and stormed into my bedroom, slamming the door behind me. I didn't need anyone. I didn't need her. I didn't need any of them. Jamie had burned her last bridge with me. Somehow, I ended up getting a decent night's sleep that night. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I had been hit by a freight train. My head was pounding, and my body was sore in places I didn't even know existed. But when I got out of bed, there was something else. Jamie was gone. She wasn't there to say goodbye, and it hit me harder than I thought it would. She left behind a simple note. "I've decided to go stay with my parents until things settle down and we can talk more. Don't throw away our future, Blake. We can get through this. Love, Jamie." It stung, but there was a weird kind of relief mixed in. I read the note a couple of times trying to make sense of it, and I wasn't sure if I was relieved she left or if I was devastated by it. Regardless, the silence in the apartment was deafening, and it was just me and my thoughts for the first time in who knows how long. By the time Monday rolled around, Jamie was at her parents' house. I'd sent her 2 sets of divorce papers. One was a mutual consent divorce, straightforward, with a 50-50th split of everything, citing irreconcilable differences. The second set was a lot more hostile, a divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Accompanying it were copies of 5 pieces of hard evidence, photos, text messages, and other damning things that left no question about what had happened. It felt like a punch to the gut to even send them, but it was too late to back out now. The choice was hers. I haven't filed either of these yet. You can choose. I need to hear from you by 9 a.m. tomorrow. If I don't, I'll submit the second one. Have a nice life. It was just business now. It was about ending this, closing a chapter that had been full of lies and betrayal, no matter how much it hurt. That evening, around 6 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and to my surprise, it was Cecile holding a pitcher of margaritas. I couldn't help but laugh a little. "What's this?" I asked, still a little groggy from the mess in my head. "Let's go eat pizza," she said with a wide smile. "I'll treat you." "I don't know." I started to protest, but she wasn't having it. She smiled that mischievous grin I knew too well and purred. "You don't have any excuses. We're going. Now." "Okay, fine," I muttered. "I just need my wallet." "Nope. You don't need it. I'm paying," she said, grinning. "You just need the keys." Before I could even protest again, she took my hand, pulled me out of the apartment, and grabbed my keys from the table near the door. We ended up at our favorite pizzeria, the one that always used organic ingredients. It was cozy and the food was great. Cecile tried to keep things light, but I could tell she was being extra cheerful to get me out of my funk. I was thankful, but I still felt like a stone. As we ate, Cecile talked about anything and everything, trying to get me to laugh, but I was still pretty distant. By the time we were done, Cecile took my hand and asked softly, "Have you decided what you're going to do?" I sighed and leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of everything settle in. "Yeah." I sent her 2 sets of divorce papers today. One's more conciliatory, the other's a full-blown hostile divorce, and I told her it's up to her. I'll file one of them tomorrow. "No chance of working things out?" she asked, her voice gentle, but I could see the concern in her eyes. I thought about it for a long moment. I just can't forgive or forget. Loyalty means everything to me, and she's clearly not capable of that. I'm done with her. I don't even want to talk to her anymore. Cecile's eyes flickered between my hand and my face, her gaze softening. After a beat, she spoke up again. When your divorce is final, I want to be the first one to have you. I blinked, completely thrown. What? I asked, making sure I hadn't misheard her. You're my best friend, she said with an honesty that took me by surprise. And I'm in love with you. The moment we go on our first date, I'll quit my job. I have enough savings to last me until I figure things out. I don't care about money. I want to be with you, Blake. And I know we can make it work if you give me a chance. I was completely shocked. I had no idea that Cecile felt that way. It didn't even cross my mind that she might want more than just friendship. But then, as the words sank in, a strange warmth spread through me. I realized that not only did I want to give her a chance, but I was already falling for her. The thought of being with her, physically, emotionally, in every way, hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt it in my chest, my gut, and even, well, lower down too. I know you probably don't want a former escort as your girlfriend, she said, a hint of doubt creeping into her voice. But I promise you won't regret it. I snapped back, more sharply than I intended. Shut up! Then, without thinking, I stood up, walked around the table, and kissed her hard on the lips. At first, it was just a moment of shock, but when she kissed me back, everything clicked. We pulled away after a few seconds, and I sat back down, still trying to catch my breath. If you're crazy enough to want me, I said, my voice steady now, here's the plan. We keep things as is until 2 weeks before my divorce is final. Then you quit your job, I sell my condo, and you break your lease. When the divorce is final, we take a week off at a resort. After that, if you're still with me, we'll move somewhere new, rent a place together, and if you're still crazy enough about me, we get married. Cecile gasped, covering her mouth with her hands, tears welling in her eyes. She was overwhelmed, but I could see the joy in her face. We held hands as we walked back to our apartments, both of us practically glowing. We kissed again before going inside our separate places, both of us smiling wide. It felt like the start of something incredible, something that had been building for a long time, without either of us knowing it. That night, I lay in bed, knowing that I wanted this plan to work more than anything I'd ever wanted in my life. It was my chance at a fresh start, and I wasn't going to let it slip away. But of course, life had a way of throwing curveballs, and the first one came early the next morning. At 7:50 a.m., my phone rang. When I saw the caller ID, I tensed up. It was Jamie's father, James. Hello, Blake. This is James Snowden. His voice came through, calm but firm. I was hoping I could get an extra hour on your 9 a.m. deadline. I want to meet with you. I promise this meeting won't change anything, but please, I'm asking you. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I tried to keep it in check. What do you want, James? Blake, you have nothing to lose. If after an hour with me you still want the divorce, I guarantee Jamie will choose the irreconcilable differences option, and things will move forward quickly. Please, you owe me this. I didn't owe him a damn thing, but I knew it was the quickest way to get things moving with Cecile. I sighed and said, Fine. When should we meet? I can be there in half an hour, he said. Okay, see you soon, I replied, hanging up the phone. The meeting with James was a complete waste of time, except for confirming that he had absolutely no idea who I really was or what I was going through. Basically, he tried to convince me that staying married to Jamie would be economically beneficial, that I'd get rich off it, and how much better my life would be if we stayed together. He did everything he could to talk me into staying married to her. But in the end, he sweetened the deal with an offer I couldn't ignore. $2 million in cash right now, plus a guarantee that Jamie would sign a post-nuptial agreement. If she ever cheated again, I'd get another $2 million. I looked him dead in the eye and said, Sorry, James, you did everything you could for your little girl, but there's no deal. I'm still trying to figure out why she even wants to stay married. I think she'd be happier if I just got out of her way. James wasn't happy with that. Cheating's never been her style, Blake. She just lost focus on what really mattered. Yeah, well, I won't be sticking around to wait for her to figure that out, I shot back. And don't forget, get her to send the signed papers over to my lawyer first thing this morning. He left looking deflated. I'm sure it wasn't because he was sad to see me go, but more because his little girl needed serious help, like professional help. Finally, the day came. The divorce was official. Both Cecile and I had spent the past 10 days packing up and moving out of our places. I sold my apartment and all the furniture in it, except the computer equipment, which Jamie didn't need. Cecile's lease had ended, so she sold her furniture too. I had almost finished selling off the business hardware to my employees by then. Jamie didn't even show up at the final hearing. Her lawyer showed up instead. I only went because I wanted to get my hands on the finalized resolution as soon as possible. After the trial, I knocked on the door of apartment 5B, where my luggage was already packed for the trip to the resort. I was expecting Cecile to be ready to go. She was definitely ready, but not for the trip just yet. When she opened the door, she was standing there completely undressed, except for her high heels and an ankle bracelet. "We have some time to get to know each other a little better before we hit the road," she said, her eyes twinkling as she pointed at the bulge in my pants. "Besides, I don't think you're up for a 2-hour drive like that." Cecile grabbed me by the tie and pulled me into her apartment, her hands on me as she kissed me passionately. I didn't need any more convincing. The moment we shared was electric, a mixture of pent-up emotions and desire. We didn't just make love, this was about connection, about everything we'd both been building up to over the past few months. The sexual chemistry was undeniable, but what made it special was that we were finally in sync emotionally, too. For the first time in a long while, I felt completely at peace with my decision. We spent more time together, savoring the moment. Afterward, we took a breather and shared some quiet time. It wasn't just physical, it was emotionally deep, a genuine connection forming between us that felt real and raw. Eventually, we got dressed. I loaded our suitcases into the car, and we hit the road, headed for the resort. Cecile curled up beside me as we drove. She snuggled close for about an hour, and then, without warning, pulled away. "Blake," she said, her tone serious, "I need to tell you 4 things. It's important that I say them now before we go any further. Ready?" "Ready," I said, giving her a soft smile, though my curiosity was piqued. "First," she began, "my name isn't actually Cecile Wilson. It's Barbara Godden, Babs for short." She paused for a second, then added, "I've got a full set of fake IDs so convincing that I've used them to sign leases and buy a car. If things work out between us, I'm going to get rid of the old me and leave that part of my life behind. I won't keep any ties to that identity." I whistled in surprise. "Wow, you could work for the CIA with skills like that. Should I call you Babs now?" "Don't call me that until you're ready to put a ring on it like Beyoncé says," she laughed. I raised an eyebrow. "All right, Babs, what's next?" She grinned, clearly enjoying my reaction. "Second, I stopped working as an escort the day I told you I loved you. Since then, I've been speeding through a community college program. I've already finished my freshman year and got a few credits toward my sophomore year. I was genuinely impressed." "That's amazing," I said. "You're full of surprises, you know that?" "Not done yet," she said, her grin widening. "Third, I've come up with an idea for an online business, and I'd love to run it by you when we get back from the resort. If you like it, we can work together on it. 50-50ths. "I'm all ears," I smiled. "Can't wait to hear it." "And finally," she said, her face turning a little more serious, "if you've got any questions about my work as an escort, you need to ask them this week. After that, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't even want to think about it. And if you bring it up after this week, I'll be really pissed. So, now's the time." I could tell the topic made her uncomfortable, but honestly, I had long since come to terms with her past. It didn't bother me at all anymore. I was just glad she'd left it behind, but I had no real questions left to ask. I'd made peace with it. After a moment of silence, I finally spoke. "I really only have one question, and after that, we're done talking about it." She looked at me, a little nervous now. "You said you charge $700 an hour, right?" I asked. "Yeah," she replied hesitantly, obviously unsure where I was going with this. "Well, now that I've been with you," I said with a teasing smile, "I gotta wonder, why did you charge so little? You should have been charging at least 10 times that much." She laughed, her face lighting up. She kissed my cheek softly and then leaned her head on my shoulder. "That's the last time we talk about this," she said, her voice quiet but firm. I smiled to myself, feeling a weight lift off my chest. Deal. Our time at the resort was unforgettable. It wasn't technically a honeymoon, but it felt like one. From snorkeling and swimming to jet skiing, hiking, and playing beach volleyball, we packed every moment with fun. We drank, laughed, and danced. I held her close, kissed her passionately, and realized that she had become everything to me. I'd never felt so alive, so content. The only downside was that after 7 days of nonstop action, I was sore, but it was the good kind of sore. I had never felt this level of happiness, and I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. After our first day together, when we fell asleep wrapped up in each other's arms after an amazing time, I just knew I was going to propose. So on the 5th day, I did. And to my relief and joy, she said yes. We were both ready to tie the knot right after the resort, but since Cecile, now Babs, had never been married before and wanted to have a few family members around, we decided to wait a few months. 3 months later, we had a small but perfect wedding in our new city. Within just 9 months of moving, Babs earned her associate's degree in business administration. We teamed up in my software business, and 3 months after that, we launched her own venture, a system she developed to help businesses maximize their promotions online. Fast forward 3 years, and we've made the decision to sell her business for a 7-figure sum. She's ready to focus on something new now. Babs, my best friend, my partner, the love of my life, well, she's pregnant with twins now. Life's never been better.